If you've never ridden on the back of a pallet jack, you are missing out. And if you work at a job where you can ride the back of a pallet jack, you need to do that. Hey everybody, it is Chris coming back to you again with another sit down stand up. I think we're at episode 30 at this point, so thank you for helping make this show a success. I know we're having a ton of fun doing it, so hopefully you are enjoying it as well. So I'm approaching a milestone birthday coming up in the next few weeks, and it's really made me go back and think about as a kid growing up, the things that were like at one point really important to me, and now maybe not so much. And one thing that I keep coming back to is this idea of what I wanted to be when I grew up. And when I was a kid, I cycled through a bunch of stuff that I wanted to be when I was a kid. What I thought would be like the best job ever. And, my dad was a cop, so I really for a while wanted to be a cop. But then I realized I was going to look like this, so not the most physically imposing, to help make sure people follow the laws. Wanted to be a fireman for a short time. Again, arms look like this, so probably not great to be able to lift people coming out of a burning building. For a while, professional wrestler was on the list. You're sensing a trend, maybe, of all these jobs that I am absolutely not physically maybe having the best toolkit for. So went through all that phase. Oddly enough, it did become a professional wrestler later on in life, at least a little bit. So check one of those off the list. For a while, I really wanted to be a Ghostbuster because I thought that was like the coolest job ever. Not a real job because ghosts aren't real, but wish it was. And that was later replaced by wanting to be a Power Ranger. And also, I don't know enough karate or martial arts to be a good Power Ranger, so also not very likely on the career path. So, and then at one point I decided, what would be the best job ever would be working at a video store. And I did that for a little while for a video store company, and I thought it was going to be the greatest job pretty much in the history of jobs. It was horrible. And because you think I'm going to watch all these great movies, and I'm going to, some of them I'm going to get to watch early, and I'll get to talk to people about movies because I love movies and it's the greatest. And it ended up being probably the worst thing ever, because you have people, it was in that era, and a lot of people are not going to understand this. It was in that era of widescreen versus full screen, and you had the people that they didn't want, they wanted their movie in a specific one of those formats versus the other, just a mess. And I'll never forget, there was a guy that came in. It was right when Pan's Labyrinth was like the big release. And so this guy comes in, and he, without saying a word, he just slams his rented copy of Pan's Labyrinth on the desk, on the counter. And I was like, oh, okay. Are you looking do you have a question? You looking what can I do for you with this? Because that doesn't tell me anything. And he says that he wants a return, or he wants his money back, and he wants a refund for his rental. And I was like, okay, you're obviously very unhappy because $1.99. You came back for $1.99. Very upset. And so I'm asking the questions like, did it not play? Like, do you want me to rent you a new one? Was there like some kind of technical problem? Would it not, do whatever? And he said, I'll never forget this for the rest of my life. He said, no, nobody told me. He said, I couldn't watch it. He said, I couldn't watch it. And I was like, oh, like, we don't really give returns for if you just don't like a movie. Like, that's not really how it works. But like, what do you mean by you couldn't watch it? Because it was not scary, but like, I get it if it was like, I didn't like it. It wasn't my thing. And he said, nobody told me that this movie had word pictures. And when he said that, I was so confused because I'm like, what are word pictures, sir? And it took me a second to process it, that the movie's in Spanish and it has subtitles on the bottom. So when he said word pictures, he meant that he didn't like a movie with subtitles. So I gave him a refund just because it made me laugh. But then later on, it made me sad because there are people out there like that exist. So he got his money back. He got his $1.99 plus tax back. So way to go, bud. Now we're at an age where the video store doesn't even exist anymore. And you can just... everything is streamable, and so it's a bummer. It's a part of our culture that we'll never get back. And the disgruntled video store employee, where people would come up and say, ask for recommendations, and you would recommend them a movie, and one of two things would happen: either you would never hear about it again, they would never ask you for recommendations again, or they would come up to you and tell you all of the reasons why they hated that movie that you recommended. So you learned to recommend like real safe choices, like stuff that that pretty much everybody would like. Or, you start out with they would say, recommend me something. And you'd be like, okay, what are your 5 favorite movies? Well, I don't know. Okay, so I'm just supposed to read your mind and tell you what I think you're going to like. I have no idea. And so I'd pull up their, you can pull up their account and so you'd be like, okay, so I see that you rented this. What did you think about it? Oh, it was okay. Okay, well, what about this one? Oh, it was okay. What about that one? It's okay. All right, well, I don't, if you think everything's okay, then I don't really know what to recommend you. We also had a great catalog system where you could type in the name of a movie and it would tell you exactly where it was. And it would tell you how many you had in the store. It was nice. And so, it was a rental company where the kids' movies, you could get so many for free. You could rent, if you rented another movie, you could get a kids' movie for free. So all the parents would come in and they'd have, one of these real cheap throwaway rentals, and then they'd rent something for their kid. And the kid rental would try and be free. And so one day, this guy came in and they only had one store that had an adult section where you had to go through the saloon doors and all that stuff. It was wild. So this guy comes in and he's like, I really want my kid to rent, I'm trying to find Disney's Hercules, animated movie for my kid, because a kid really wants to watch Hercules. So I go over and I type in the thing, and I type in Hercules and I hit enter, and it says, oh, we have one in I think it was either the 700 or the 800 was the adult section. And me not thinking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, we totally have it. Let me go grab it. And as I'm walking, I'm my brain suddenly connects and it's that's the adult one. That's not the right one that you're looking for. And I had to stop and be like, no, we don't have it. And he's like, well, I thought you just said you had it. And I was like, I'm mistaken. I know that it says on the computer that there's one that's called that, but that's not it. And having to explain to him in front of his kid why we had a movie called Hercules, but his kid couldn't rent it, and he probably didn't want his kid watching it, was a joy. So, so many stories about working at the video store. Worked at the toy store. Everybody knows if you watched last time, the fitting room escapades of working at the toy store, working in an electronics section, cell phone section of pharmacy. Another one that I will always remember is working in the pharmacy. I was a pharmacy tech for a short time, and there was like the number one thing that you never want to do besides give somebody the wrong medication. That's always the number one. But the number two thing that you never want to do is you never want to do anything that's going to cause a HIPAA violation. Like, you never want to give anybody's medical info out to anybody except for that person, obviously. So there were 4 or 5 stations in this pharmacy. It's like you have register, you have bagging, where we'll start from the beginning. So you have like input, where the person comes in and drops off the prescription, and they'll type it in, which prints out the label or like sets up the label. And then you have the picker, who will go and pick out the medication, and then they bottle it and they put it in, and they put it in the thing for the pharmacist to check. And then you have the stuffer, who gets the paperwork printed out, because all of the prescriptions get a packet of paper that has all of the information about your medication and like what you're diagnosed with, and your doctor and your address and all that stuff. It's all your HIPAA stuff that you want to make sure goes to that person. So the bagger then like stuffs that in there, and then goes and puts it on the shelf. And then the register obviously checks person out. So we had a guy who would always come in and immediately just go to bagging, because it was like the easiest thing. Because it was always kind of weird, like when you first walked in, you were like into the pharmacy, like everybody was just kind of like doing stuff, so you were kind of like, I don't really know what to do, I'm just going to jump in somewhere. But he would always jump in, like he would never look. Like there are context clues, like you look at how many prescriptions there are left to fill, how many people are actually filling, if anybody is in and is about to go on break, stuff like that. But he would just go in and immediately go to bagging, because he would love to just fold up the papers, put them in the bag and go. Fold it up, put it in the paper, in the bag and go. And so one day he shows up and he just starts doing this, because like the pharmacists had already started printing stuff up and they had it folded and set. And so he gets in and he just starts putting papers in bags and all that stuff. And like he puts up, 25, 30 bags. And then all of a sudden he stops and he's just like, uh-oh. And we're like, what uh-oh? Like, don't say uh-oh. Like, uh-oh is bad. And he said, none of these are the right papers for the prescriptions that I'm putting up. And he had like mixed up all of the papers. So he put all of the wrong papers in all of the wrong bags for like the 30 that he had done. So we had to go back through basically like reverse. So you'd have to go like let's say, this one is supposed to go in green bag 4, but it's actually orange bag 3. So then you'd have to go to green bag 4 and see who was in that one. And then that one would say like, oh, you have to go to, that one's supposed to be in yellow bag 12. So then you'd go to yellow bag 12 and see that one says red bag 1. And so we had to backtrack it took hours to undo everything, because we had to go back through and then match up where it was, match the medication with the paperwork in the correct bag and fix what he did. So it was the easiest station, and he turned it into the worst, the biggest issue. It was crazy. All of the OSHA violations that we committed at the toy store. If you've never ridden on the back of a pallet jack, you are missing out. And if you work at a job where you can ride the back of a pallet jack, you need to do that. But I'm going to stop incriminating myself and say that this is where I will stop before I get a call from the local police department. So I want to say thank you for checking out and hanging out with me. I am Chris. You can hear me every week on the FWB podcast. You can also see me on the Bonafide or Bogus Trivia channel, trivia show on this channel. on the TN2M Show's channel. So make sure to give us a subscribe and give it a like, and join us next time. I don't know who it's going to be. I think I do. I think I do know who it's going to be. I usually do know who it's going to be, but I like to say I don't, because it's a big mystery. And you just have to tune in to see for the next person who's going to be telling some funny stories here on Sit Down, Stand Up.